Trump, Powell, there's a lot going on with the Chinese tariffs. Of course, you know that the liberal side is completely reporting it differently than the conservative side. But either way, it's news that I want to source through. Let's go through Trump's non-favorite, Caitlin Collins, and let's see what she has to say about it. And then I'm going to bring y'all up to speed on what my thoughts are on it.
President Trump made news on two key economic fronts today. First, signaling to reporters inside the Oval Office that tariffs on China could be lowered substantially from the current 145%, and what would be a massive relief, to say the least, for investors.
Are you going to play hardball with them?
I'm not going to say, no, I'm not going to mention COVID. I'm not going to say, oh, I'm going to play hardball with China. I'm going to play hardball with you, President Xi. No. We're going to be very nice.
Trump softened.
Why would people expect for Trump to tell a reporter that he's going to play hardball with China in negotiations on tariffs? That makes zero sense. Why would he publicly say that he's going to play hardball with China instead of taking a more diplomatic approach to the negotiations so that they can have an outcome that is beneficial for the United States of America? Why would they telegraph the move like that, even if that was the move that they was going to make?
Stance on those Chinese tariffs, as he also sent stock futures somewhere they have not been a lot lately, in positive territory. But also, so did what the president said in the Oval Office about
Somebody saying, Anton, are you doubling down on why are you not doubling down on investing in Tesla? Well, if you are a part of Stock Club, then you know I've invested more into something else. That is also an EV electric company that I like even more than Tesla. That's not as visible, but I think he's just as smart. And y'all don't go into it. I'm not going to give the reasons. But again, we talk about this in Stock Club and I give more insight. So you can't just automatically just jump into something. I have my own Magnificent Seven. I got a dark horse. And then I have some other investments that I'm not going to talk about that I show the receipts for on Stock Club that I think is recession proof. It doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter who's in office. We deep dive into it. Let's continue, y'all. What is wrong with y'all? If I say, hold on, listen. If I say, hey, listen, don't say this, don't do that, and then y'all go out because you want to be the first person to say it or the first person to do it, and especially if you don't have any context, why do y'all? Don't worry about it. Let's continue. We're just going to go ahead and rock out.
Powell's job. Now, President Trump has spent days attacking the chairman of the Federal Reserve, saying that his termination could not come fast enough, and just yesterday calling him a, quote, major loser, and then today saying this.
No, I have no intention of firing him. I would like to see him be a little more active in terms of his idea to lower interest rates. This is a perfect time to lower interest rates. If he doesn't, is it the end? No, it's not, but it would be good timing.
My economic source was the Treasury Secretary under President Clinton and also the Director of the National Economic Council under President Obama. Larry Summers, great to have you here tonight. You heard the president there on Fed Chair Jay Powell. He sounded a lot of the last few days like he wanted him out. There were real questions about this. We saw some White House aides changing their views on it. I wonder what you make of what he had to say tonight.
Correct,
Look,
Jody.
I'm an economist, not a psychologist.
Correct, Jody. So a lot of people don't know that is that the president, to my knowledge, I've done a lot of research on this, the president cannot fire the Fed chair. So when you see people put up the headlines that says Trump has no intention of firing Fed Chair Powell, you would think that CNN is more responsible with their headlines to know that Trump can't fire the Fed chair. Now, he may not necessarily care for him. He may put pressure on him to move a certain way or to resign, or he may want somebody else to replace him, but he cannot fire the Fed chair. Now, why would CNN put that as the headline, knowing that I'm pretty sure that the people over at CNN know that that's true. But let's continue. This is why Trump called them a third-rate organization.
Colleges. I don't understand why the president says one thing one day and then the opposite the next day. Here's what I know. When the president pursues the distinctive elements of his economic program, more tariffs, more pressure on the Federal Reserve, more challenges to legal institutions, more pressure on the budget deficit.
Seemed like her neck got
When he
longer.
pursues his program more aggressively, markets plummet. When he backs off of all of his ideas and returns things to normal, markets rally. That's all one has to know. And markets look forward. And so they're making a judgment that the president's new ideas in economic policy, the tariffs, the Fed bashing, the challenges to rules of law, are very bad ideas that will do much damage to the economy. And markets recognize that, and capital flees the United States when it looks like he's going to act on those ideas. And when it looks like he was just talking, then there's more confidence and people pull back and markets normalize. But it's got to be an unfortunate circumstance where the president not being true to his word, not carrying through on his promises and threats is what markets are desperately hoping for.
The president cannot fire the Fed chair. Congress cannot fire the Fed chair. The Fed chair is nominated by the president, and then it is confirmed by the Senate, and then it serves a 4-year term. So his term may be coming up soon, but he cannot be removed or fired unless it's like some super bad thing that he did or some level of negligence that is huge or whatever. But all they can do is just spotlight what they don't agree with about the Fed, but they cannot fire the Fed, and the Congress cannot remove them either. Okay, so this is why we have to be informed. This is why when you see people talk about stuff on social media, a lot of times they need to be fact checked themselves because they are just spewing talking points that doesn't necessarily translate into what success looks like. Okay, let's continue.
That's the mark of a country that in a sense is not in reasonable control, not seen as being governed in a serious and competent way.
I mean, we saw the markets going up after just some comments that the Treasury Secretary had made behind closed doors today, not even on camera. They were just reported about in terms of the trade war with China. But what he said on China tonight, I thought was also really significant because he called the 145% tariffs that he's put in place here very high. And at one point in the Oval Office, he told reporters, and I'm quoting the president now, it will come down substantially. I do think there's a question to your point there of does that last, or, does China see that as the damage has been done here?
I can't judge. I don't understand why the Secretary of the Treasury is having meetings.
All right, so this guy apparently doesn't know anything. He's saying that he can't judge, he can't give his opinion. He's just an economist. He doesn't actually speak on trade relations or whatever. So I'm trying to figure out why he's here. But the whole idea of it is, I think that it's strategic. And obviously, China, if you have been observing and listening and paying attention to international news, then you know that China is absolutely positively suffering. It's one of the reasons why they didn't raise tariffs again after Trump put the 145% tariffs on China. Their economy is sputtering, their factories are closing, and this is why they're trying to pivot and have conversations with other countries so that they can get a leg up and also be able to have some sort of leverage in the upcoming negotiations with the United States of America to make sure that they get a fair deal. Businesses are suffering like crazy, and China is scrambling to try to bolster relationships so that they can continue to export at a huge rate so that they can keep all of their factories open, because their real estate is absolutely in a bubble and their manufacturing is largely dependent on exports, and they need the rest of the world, including the United States of America, to be able to take in all of their products and all of the stuff that they're putting out to the world. China by itself cannot sustain its own economy. China by itself cannot sustain its own economy. It is an exporter nation. Their people are not prosperous enough, even though they are building up their middle class. Their people do not make enough money. They do not buy their own products enough. They need the world to consume their products in order for them to be profitable. Now, that is a really, really great strategy if the world continues to consume your products. If you are able to manipulate other countries and other governments to continue to accept your products at their own demise, that means that that country will continue to benefit. They will continue to run up a bag. They can continue to have you promoted on TikTok, and then you go from there. You go from there. But the minute that you start to cut off the exports, then you start to become a poor nation. And then the question becomes, how long can you sustain this while at the same time continuing to bolster your relationships with other countries so that you can then get some kind of leverage when you go into the Trump negotiations? Oh, don't think for 1 second that China don't want to make a deal with the United States of America. They absolutely do. And the reason that they do, I tell y'all every day, is because we got you guys. And as long as you guys continue to buy all of the trash products that you want, as long as y'all continue to rock out with other countries, as long as y'all continue to support all of these other countries, then we will always be in a position of leverage because they are dependent on you guys to buy and sell as many as possible. 100%. A lot of people will say that we need China in order to continue to export cheap products. I disagree. I think that we need a cultural shift and we need to start investing in ourselves. I don't think we need most of these places. If you're asking me my honest to God opinion, I don't think that we need big box stores. I don't think that we need any of that stuff at all. Is it cool from a capitalistic perspective? Maybe. There's pros and cons to everything, but I would like to see a more robust local economy. The problem is that we are a consumer nation and nobody actually wants to work.